Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome back to Batman Be Vlogged, the weekly vlog series where I review an episode of Batman Beyond after watching it for the very first time. Today we are looking at episode 31, Sneak Peek, from a story by Alan Burnett with a teleplay written by Stan Berkowitz, directed by Dan Reba. As soon as this episode started playing, I was shocked. If you remember in my early videos, in my introduction video actually, I talked about the reason I am doing this series. Being born in 1994, I grew up with the DC animated universe, or the Bruce Timmverse as it's also called. But, 1994, I was a very young child when many of these shows started. I remember them more from reruns. Like, that's how I remember Batman the Animated Series and Superman the Animated Series. And of course, when I was a little older, Justice League came out and Static Shock came out. But like half of it I remember watching as it came out. Half of it I remembered because it had such a good life in reruns. Batman Beyond was kind of the weird one because, as far as I can recall, I could be wrong about this, but as far as I can recall, it didn't really have much of a life in reruns. So, and because I was so young at the time, I remember watching it. I just don't remember anything specific about it. Like I said early on, I remember scattered things here and there. Like I talked about remembering the Bane episode. And similarly, as soon as this episode started, I I started remembering it. Not everything. I only remember like maybe one or two scenes in the middle of the episode. But yeah, this was an episode I was shocked to discover I remembered. This episode focuses on a man named Ian Peak who holds a gossip, quote unquote, news show, The Inside Peak. The best example I can think of is think TMZ. You know, he's essentially a gossip newscaster, whatever you want to call it, who kind of harasses and gets dirt on high-ranking officials and celebrities. He's essentially a muckraker, which makes it really perfect that he's voiced by Michael McKean. Like, if you've ever seen, like, the Brady Bunch movie is probably the most prominent example. He is really good at playing scummy. And we find out the way that Peak is getting all this dirt on these people is he has an invention, a belt, that allows him to phase through solid objects and sneak into certain areas where he can then film and get photographs. One thing that's kind of where the episode loses me a little bit. This is overall a good episode, a decent episode. It's nothing great or amazing, but it is one of the better episodes. But like the sci-fi concept here really loses me, and it's not one that it's not a new or interesting concept. It's one that has existed in sci-fi. It's this idea that solid matter isn't really solid. It's that it's just all the atoms are sort of vibrating together. And the idea is that if you change something's vibrational frequency to something different from another object or to match it, you can then phase through that object. Kind of like how invisibility is tied to light refraction. And I will say too, that's primarily what this device does. It allows Peak to change his vibrational frequency to phase through objects. Although at the start, the episode seemed a little confusing. The episode seemed a little confused about this concept at first because it also acted like this was making Ian invisible as well. And that wasn't the case. Like, a couple people see him and he gets into conflicts, at which point the episode more solidifies itself in that, he's just changing the vibrational frequency, allowing him to phase through objects. And then, of course, we get to the part of this episode that I do remember. During a scuffle with some mobsters that Ian inadvertently created by recording a conversation one of them had with Barbara's husband, the DA. He puts a camera on the Batmobile and is able to learn that Terry is Batman and the person helping him is Bruce Wayne. Wow, sorry, my mind just went blank. Also, I just ate, so I feel like I was gonna burp. But like that's the part of the episode I remember. Peak has a little sneak preview where he shows pixelated photos of Terry and Bruce, and he's planning to go on broadcast and reveal them. And I didn't remember at all how this episode concluded, more on that in a minute, but I'll pause here to say that Will Friedle and Kevin Conroy give some really good performances here as they start coming to terms with the fact that they are about to be exposed. Like, Terry has this scene where he tells his mom and brother that he's Batman, and he's being earnest about it, and they just kind of laugh him off, not believing him. And then he goes to Peak saying, "You can expose me, but Bruce has done too much for Gotham. Do not expose him, please." Which, Peak very snidely brushes off. And similarly, later in the episode, Bruce also goes to Peak, and he's incensed about it. Kevin Conroy is so great. I know in a lot of these reviews, I've talked about the absence of Bruce. Just bringing it up, not always as a positive or negative. Like, if you don't have a plan for him, don't keep him there. That's my thought on, characters like that or plots like that. Like, a lot, like continuation sequel series and stuff like this, people always want the fan service. I like fan service, don't get me wrong. But yeah, no, it's like, if you don't have a point to him being there, he doesn't need to be there. But also at the same time, Bruce in Batman Beyond is Terry's Alfred. So, I would like to see more of him more often, than just behind a computer, talking into Terry's headset about something, like giving him context or exposition or what have you. And we get that here, similar, because Bruce has a similar confrontation with Peak, where we learn that the technology he was using was unstable and is starting to shift his body into a permanently out of phase. There we go. This episode ends on a really dark note. Like, basically, Peak's body permanently shifts out of phase, and he just begins falling through the building they're on, with Terry continually trying to get down to the next level to try and catch him and stop him. And ultimately to the point where they get to the ground floor, and he continues to sink down. As Bruce says, because he's out of phase now, the only force still having an effect on him is gravity. And that's where the episode ends. The episode literally ends with Bruce saying, "He'll just keep falling down to the center of the earth." That is a really dark way to end this episode. And the way it just kind of fades to black leads me to believe that they didn't really have an idea on how to end this. Sneak Peek is a decent episode. It's not amazing. It's not one of the best. It's not phenomenal. But it's not one of the worst. It's not it's really good. It's really, like I said, the sci-fi concept is a little too out there for my taste. It's always out there whenever this concept shows up in something. But what really helps it are the performances from the three leads of this episode: Will Friedle, Kevin Conroy, and Michael McKean. But those are just my thoughts. Have you seen Sneak Peek? What are yours? Please start a conversation in the comments below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload, and in the description box below, you'll find the link to my social medias where you can follow me and get updates on the channel. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next week for episode 32.